Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to episode 22 of the Broadview podcast. Today we're going to talk about episode 8 of WandaVision. So stay tuned.
And sometimes I gotta, and sometimes I gotta, and sometimes I gotta, and sometimes.
Good morning, everybody. It's been a while. Last time we spoke was last week's episode. I'm going to do a Sixers podcast that'll be out tomorrow for tonight's Sixers game. So keep an eye out for that. But today we're going to talk about WandaVision, episode 8. So actually, I'm freestyling this one off the top, off the dome. It's what I do. You know, if you know me, you know it's what I do. Get me drunk enough, I'm probably going to start freestyling at some party. And, you know, it's just the thing I do, right? But ultimately, because this episode to me doesn't have a ton of, it's not like a ton of Easter. I mean, there are Easter eggs, but it's not really, the Easter eggs are not the point. You know, I think a lot of times in a lot of the previous episodes, you have situations where the Easter eggs are pointing to the bigger plot, but I didn't really feel like that happened in this episode. But I do have a different perspective of some of the things that happen in kind of this. I mean, it's almost cheating because it's almost in response to some of the other channels that have already done their videos on this episode where I've watched them and I'm like, I don't agree with that thought, or I disagree with that concept. And some of this is going to be in response to some of those themes. So in this episode, I mean, straightforward, you know, we essentially tie off every knot. One thing that Marvel's been really, really good at in WandaVision so far, in my opinion, is that they, you know, the first show that really got ruined by the internet was Lost. This is going to go a little bit left, but it'll make sense in a second, as most things. The first show that really got ruined by the internet was Lost. Lost is one of my favorite shows, has one of my favorite endings. I don't care what people say. You know, I get it. People are all mad at Lost ending. But the problem is what happened with Lost was the first show that got ruined by the internet. They had guessed what was going to be the end of the show, episode 1. When Lost first dropped on a forum, you know, when forums were still a thing before Reddit kind of took over the forum and put it on steroids, somebody on a forum had immediately guessed what the ending of Lost was going to be. And from that point forward, two things happened. One, the writers started writing kind of in response to people having guessed the endings already. You know, so they started trying to throw all these misdirects to get people off the scent. And two, there was a writer's strike in the middle of the show, which then sent the show even to a bigger tailspin where by the end of the show they had created too much misdirection to explain away. They could no longer explain all the things that had been happening. And that's how they fucked up the ending. But I thought that the end of the last episode, much like Game of Thrones, which had fucked up the story for the 2 seasons before the series finale, I thought that the finale of that show and the finale of Lost did its best to clean up a fucked up story already. You know what I mean? Anyway, this is not about them. With WandaVision, they have been doing a great job fucking with us to a certain extent, right? Making small things seem bigger. My beard is fucking up right now. I'm sorry. Making small things seem bigger than they are. And essentially going with the most simplest storyline almost, right? That director Hayward told you he was just the director, one of the directors of S.W.O.R.D., and that this is what he was doing. And meanwhile, we took that. Well, we didn't. I didn't take it. A lot of people did. Started saying, is he Mephisto? Is he? No, he is exactly who he said he was. You know what I mean? He is exactly who he said he was. Wanda hasn't been being manipulated. She did this all on her own. She might have been manipulated. We'll talk about that in a moment. But mostly, it's not the manipulation we think it is. Agnes, I think, in this episode tells you exactly what she wants and exactly what the problem is. And I think that the beginning of the episode tells us exactly where she stands. You know what I mean? And we are trying to add depth to things and come up with all these bigger conspiracies. Could it be this? And this is unraveling and all of this. You know what I mean? And meanwhile, that's just, it's just what they're telling us it is. And we're making it deeper. So by keeping it simpler, they're shitting on us to a certain extent. A lot of the things in this show has been breaking the fourth wall the entire time. You know what I mean? Prior to the fourth wall episode, it's been breaking the fourth wall. Even if Evan Peters ends up not being anything more than we think he is, which I don't think is the truth, but even if he didn't, it would be a troll to fuck with us through the fourth wall, to fuck with us, to make us make everything bigger than it actually is. So I think that's where we are with WandaVision to an extent. I think to a certain extent this is going to be a lot simpler than we believe it, but it's still going to essentially be the launching pad. Listen, there's not going to be so let's jump into the episode a bit. So the beginning of the episode, we come in and it's kind of Agatha's origin story to a little bit different than what happens in the comics, but kind of a similar concept. It's happening during the Salem witch trials, except that this time it's witches that are putting her on trial for essentially, well, like every single, magic story. It happens in Doctor Strange 1. It's the exact same thing that happens in Doctor Strange 1, arguably, except the difference is he gets held to account by Mordo, who is now going to be is the villain who will appear in the new Doctor Strange, one of Doctor Strange's main villains. But they decide to put her on trial and try to execute her. During that execution, they essentially start, shooting her with the Witcher's power, and she essentially kind of seemingly drains their life force, which is interesting, which could help explain how Agatha's been alive for so long. Now, in the comic books, this is not a thing she has as far as we know. We know that she's kept herself alive in the comics through a ton of different spells, but we don't know the nature of those spells. Here, it seems like she's absorbed the power of her mother and the other Salem witches, and through that has stayed alive, maybe, or something. I don't know. So this episode picks up, and Catherine Hahn is giving Elizabeth Olsen the whole spiel, and is trying to figure out exactly how Elizabeth Olsen has done this. Now, she takes and this is, I think they do a great job here, really diving into some heavy themes, even though I can be a tiny bit critical, because Marvel really does they jump into heavy themes, but they really swerve them. They never label the themes. It's almost like they don't want to really jump into them. So, for example, in the third Iron Man and which precedes Age of Ultron, Iron Man is become suffering from PTSD essentially, and they never really want to dive into that. Iron Man also in the comic books has a severe is an alcoholic. Has like a really bad alcohol problem, and it's in fact something that's killing him. And he just can't get it under control, but they never ever dive into that at all in the movies. They don't really ever mention that he has PTSD. You kind of come across it on your own, but they never mention it. This is happening with Wanda. They call it grief, and while that's cool, grief is a momentary thing, kind of, right? When I mean momentary, I don't mean that it skips in a moment, because it could last for a really long time, but grief is a passing feeling that oftentimes turns into a depression that you can go into. And what Wanda's going through is depression. She's depressed. She describes depression in the scene with Vision, where she says, it's like a wave that knocks me down, and every time I get back up, it pushes me back down. That is a description. If you ask any depressed person, such as I, who deals with depression, what is a great allegory for depression, we would give you something like that. And they don't ever really, they kind of avoid saying the word depression, because it's kind of a trigger word in today's society. But, either way, they're dealing with, and listen, even if you felt like, well, it's not really Marvel's place to do that, you would be wrong, because Marvel Comics has been doing this forever. The entire premise of the X-Men essentially is about racism in this country, right? It's all about a group of people who are being, who are different than the rest of the humanity, and are essentially being hunted by a militarized police force, what are called Sentinels in the comics, and are being put in concentration camps. They have to register. There's all these overtones in X-Men. The What If comics used to do a great job of taking issues. There was this one What If comic issue I had that was about the Hulk, and on the cover of the comic it said, "What if Bruce Banner was the monster?" And in the comic is about the Hulk being, this hero, and when he turned into Bruce Banner, he would like beat his wife and be an alcoholic. He was like a piece of shit. So they have always dived into these heavy themes, but for whatever reason in the movies, they don't really want to, talk about it that much. You know what I mean? They kind of even touch base on some of this stuff in Jessica Jones in season 1 before, and then season 2 kind of goes off the rails. But anyway, either way, I do think they do a good job really showing the trauma that Wanda has experienced through her life. Now, if Wanda becomes a bad guy, kind of, That's not a great allegory, because now you have a person who you're saying depression turns you into a bad person. And that's not pretty, but it is what it is. We can't expect everyone to deal with everything correctly. Um, but essentially, her backstory. But ultimately, if you're going to make a villain, you give them this tragic ass backstory, similar to what you did with Killmonger, kind of similar to what you do with Thanos. You give them the most tragic backstory you can come up with, and then they have a reason to be bad, and the audience is now like, damn, but she kind of low key right. She had a fucked up life. But anyway, back to the episode. I'm sorry, I've gone a little bit off the rails. So at the beginning of the episode, obviously we see Kathryn Hahn. She's giving her the spiel. She takes her down a walk down memory lane. There, we learned that, again, where people were like, maybe it was Magneto who stopped the bomb from going off. Nope, it was Wanda. Now, what's interesting here, now this is an Easter egg that I have seen people point out, but not to the extent that I think they should. Where Kathryn Hahn says, oh, you did a probability hex to stop the bomb from going off. And what's funny is, for a long time, especially when the movie started coming out, I was like, why is Wanda have all these extra powers? She's like launching people across the room and all this shit. When in the comic books, we knew Wanda as someone who that was her power, affecting probability. She could do things that would affect probability, and that probability it essentially could do anything. Anything could possibly occur when she casted that probability on something. That was like kind of her power for a while. And then they turned it into this chaos magic, and then they kind of started building onto her and started giving her this backstory. They started fleshing her out by saying Chthon is the person who imbued her with this power and all this stuff. But originally that it was really just, it can affect the probabilities. So that's kind of, I think they did that. That's like an Easter egg. That's like a little callback to the comics there. But Kathryn Hahn also, Kathryn Hahn is like an Orthodox witch. You know what I mean? And so when she's sitting there giving Wanda the business, talking to her, she's asking, like, how don't you know that, these are runes? How can't you recognize you can't cast spells in this dungeon? Because these are my runes that I've put in place, that I've imbued with magic. So only I could cast the magic here. You know what I mean? And she's kind of pissed, because I think she sees Wanda as like this ultra powerful being, that she doesn't understand how she's able to do what she's doing by taking her down memory lane. We see that. We see Wanda have a moment with the Mind Stone. At that point, she sees the vision of Wanda, essentially, of the Scarlet Witch. More like from the comics. I saw someone compare it similar to Phoenix, and I caught the same vibes, very Phoenix-like, which is, this vision that kind of similar to Jean Grey has, like this vision of this Phoenix in outer space, or this powerful thing. And Phoenix is this entity in outer space that chooses its host and then absorbs them. And that's what Phoenix does with Jean Grey. It's kind of similar to almost like what you're seeing here with Wanda and the Scarlet Witch. Is that a vision of her future? Maybe we'll see that image again, down the line, kind of. But that was pretty interesting. Then we move forward. We're in Avengers mansion. The events in Lagos had just taken place, where she flings the bomb into the building by accident. The bomb goes off, and now we're on the whatchamacallit, the Accords, what were they called? The Wachovia Accords? Is that what they were called? I can't remember now. Yeah, anyway, the Accords, where they have to now register superheroes, and obviously the inception of Civil War, where Vision delivers a beautiful, honestly, a fucking beautiful soliloquy about grief being love persevering, which is beautiful. I mean, that was really just very touching. Take it for the person who is childlike. Children have the most wisdom, if you haven't figured it out yet. Adults are impossibly stupid. Children are very wise, because things are so simple to them. And that's kind of what Vision's whole thing is. So, we see Vision. Now, some people have pointed out how this bedroom looks completely different than the bedroom in Civil War. That is not a continuity error. That would be done on purpose. So one of two things. I mean, either we don't exactly know when this is happening. It would be an enclosed time, though, right? It's not like she wasn't in Avengers' room kind of locked up, quote unquote, for like a year. You know what I mean? She might have been there for a month, maybe, if you elapse time. So how much could the room have changed in that month? People have pointed it out, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. So ultimately, we come out of it. We see exactly what happens. She goes to Director Hayward. Director Hayward, being a son of a bitch, how he knows this stuff, we don't know. Obviously, somehow understands that Wanda's power. But well, the thing is the answer would be this: we know Hydra has had infiltrated Shield. You know what I mean? And infiltrated the government at all levels. And I'm not saying that Director Hayward is part of Hydra. I don't think he is. But could, as they discover that that Hydra has infiltrated, could they have also gotten the stuff that was done by Baron Strucker and all these guys when they were doing the when they were doing all these experiments on Wanda and her brother? Could they have gotten that data back and recognized some alignment between Wanda's power, like the signature of Wanda's power and the signature of Vision's life force, and said, okay, I think Wanda can bring this back online. Her power, which was granted by the Tesseract, which was, they may not understand it as a Mind Stone, which was granted by the Tesseract, could that power is similar to the life force of Vision, could she bring him back online? So I'm guessing that's what's happening here, that he ended up getting this information from Hydra, since they had, essentially their networks had to have interconnected at some point. He lets Wanda in purposely, lets her see the body purposely. Ultimately, this is a callback to Vision Quest, where you see Vision's body dismembered, except in the comic books, the difference is in the comic books, Vision's body is dismembered and his skin has been pulled off. His skin is almost like an outfit in the comic books. It's more similar to Terminator, to Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in Terminator, where his skin is just a covering for the android part, the android, and that's the same thing for Vision in the comic book. So when he sees you, you just see metallic muscles and veins essentially running through. So and when in the comic books, when they reassemble him, they have trouble reassembling him, and his skin, essentially the skin turns white when they put it, however they fuck it up and put the skin in his white, and that in the comic book represents the loss of his personality and emotional, like that side of him is gone. That was completely based on Wonder Man. Wonder Man has a deeply complicated story which deals a ton with like kind of self-esteem issues and all types of shit. And later on, they approach Wonder Man because they want Wonder Man to give back the brain scans, to give brain scans again to Vision, which Wonder Man wasn't cool with because they did it without his permission in the first place. And also because he's in love with Wanda, he is sure that the reason why Vision fell in love with Wanda was because he was already in love with her. So it was like a complicated thing in the comic books. Anyway, so that's kind of a callback to White Vision there. She comes back, hits us with another fucked up thing, right? Which is, again, keeping the story as simple as possible. We never saw Wanda leave with the body. We assumed it because we couldn't come up with anything else, right? Yep, she doesn't leave with the body. That's what they told us off the rip. They told us off the rip she doesn't leave with the body. So she leaves. She doesn't feel Vision. She gets back to the car. There's this envelope. Now, where the fuck the envelope comes from, we have no idea, right? We don't know. It's a deed, and it's from the Vision. It's a deed from the Vision bought a plot in Westview, this decrepit neighborhood. It's not really decrepit. It's just kind of run down. I think people have come back from the. I think what you're seeing in that neighborhood largely is people coming back from the snap and being like, what am I even doing now? You know what I mean? What is this even? Like what? What is life? And I think that's represented when she's driving through the town. It's very, very similar to Endgame. It's hitting a lot of those same notes from the beginning of Endgame, which is like, what is life anymore? You know what I mean? Wanda gets to the house, has essentially a mental break, a breakdown, except that when she breaks down, she creates a brand new house and creates a brand new neighborhood. And right there, we get the reveal that Wanda creates Vision from her own magic, which kind of, I guess, makes sense that her being imbued with the power of, in the context of the MCU and the science that's being presented to us, that she is being influenced with the power of the Mind Stone, having been imbued with some of that energy, was able to create a new version of Vision. But this Vision seemingly only exists within Westview. right? That's what it seems like. It seems like it only exists within Westview with no memory of what's happened previously, just knowing that, you know, he loves Wanda, doesn't really completely have an idea. So, boom, now Catherine Hahn sees what's happened, and she's like, oh, I see now. You're the Scarlet Witch, meaning you have this chaos energy, meaning you don't really know how dangerous you are to the rest of civilization. You know what I mean? I don't think I've seen people say, well, Catherine, what does she want to use Wanda for? I don't think she wants to use Wanda for anything. You know what I mean? I think that just like if along the lines of keeping things simple, she is about to be executed in the beginning of the movie for accessing magic that is beyond her rank. She is about to do this. She is trying to do the same thing to Wanda now. She's like, no, bitch, you're too fucking powerful for this shit. You don't know. And I think that in the next episode, we get the reveal. You don't know that these kids right here are not what you think they are. They are part of the soul of Mephisto. I think we're going to get that in the next episode. And because of that, you are too dangerous. Your ability to manifest life this way means you're grabbing from these places to create life, and that's not how this finna go. All right, so you're gonna have to die, you know, or something like that. I'm thinking that's what we're gonna see Catherine Hahn. I'm thinking Catherine Hahn is playing a role similar to Doctor Strange, you know, which is somebody who is a protector of certain things. Now I've seen people, and I want to jump into some of this real quick. You Rockstar, shout out to them again, geniuses over there. I just don't agree with kind of their direction of what they think this means. Now he suggested that Catherine Hahn wants to use Wanda to bring the version of Satan, because the goal of witches is to marry Satan. Now I would say that I don't know that Marvel wants to go this much into this territory generally, because the truth is the Salem witch trials and that concept of the witches is a kind of like a Eurocentric Catholic thing. You know what I mean? Which is, but the Salem witch trials is these women who are not listening. Mostly it's women who don't listen to men, or women who want to be independent. They must be witches because they won't fucking listen to men. So we must kill them. And it becomes this very Catholic. It's a very Catholic thing. Listen, Catholicism has more blood on its hands than anything in this world. If you know history, Catholics kill everything. Christianity kills all of the things. They just come and murder shit, and they always do it for the same reason, because you're praying to the devil. Paganism, you're praying to no, they're not. They're just praying to like nature and shit. You're just, you know, even in the story of Moses, they might be worshiping an ox. The reason they be worshiping the ox is because the ox provides them food. You know, but you want to murder them now. You know, here's 10 commandments, bitch. Suck a dick and die, right? No, you know, who am I to be sacrilegious? It's not me. I believe in God. You know what I mean? I'm just saying people are stupid as shit. And when you give people wisdom and tell them, and those people decide that you're not going to learn how to read, we're the keeper of the wisdom, so we're going to stop you from reading this literature, and then we're going to impart the laws on you, is when you have conflicts of interest. So to say that witches want to marry Satan is kind of a Catholic thought. Is not completely real. You know what I mean? It's not, witches aren't, sometimes witches, but again, we're just women who disagreed, or we're just like, if you had a voodoo priestess in the South, for example, voodoo is not devil worship. There is a type of devil worship in voodoo, but it's not devil worship for the most part. You know what I mean? It's just another faith, but they're going to call you devil worshipers because you don't believe in, you're not worshiping God or Jesus Christ. You know. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to go that deep. You know, maybe they want to just roll with witches, want to marry Satan. But so I don't agree with that. You know what I mean? I don't agree with that. I think they're going to keep this somewhat simple. You know what I mean? Catherine Hahn in the comic books, this is her character in the comic books. She's kind of a good guy, low key. You know what I mean? No pun intended. She's a good guy. And she, in the comic books, recognizes that the kids are pieces of Mephisto's soul, and she wipes Wanda's memory. You know what I mean? So we're getting a little more, we're getting a dance instead of a one-to-one thing. We're getting a dance between Catherine Hahn and Elizabeth Olsen here of what's going on. So I think for the most part, that's probably what we're going to see. I think we're going to see something like that happen. As far as the basement is concerned, just to answer a couple of things, as far as the basement is concerned, I've seen people suggest, well, did whoever give the deed to Wanda knowing that basement was there, And I don't know if I agree with that. We've seen already in the Marvel Universe the ability of, for example, Doctor Strange to open a door and end up in a new place. You know what I mean? Aside from doing the circle shit, just open a door and end up in a different place. You know what I mean? Through the Sanctum Sanctorum. So could the door to that basement, could she have casted spells on this house, taken that house for her own, and essentially cast a spell that leads the door to the basement into, because we know it's outside the hex. They've pointed that out in terms of the camera, right? The camera then pans to a cinematic camera. That means usually that's meant in this show that they're now outside the hex. Then when they come back into the hex, it comes more to the standard shot. They leave the hex, it's cinematic now, right? Well, we know that when they go into the basement, they're outside the hex. Well, that basement could be outside of Westview. And the door is just a portal to get into that basement. That could have been a spell casted by her. That's going to be I'm going to guess that. That's going to be my guess there. I don't think that was there. Why the house was empty, and, that was kind of lucky, I guess. But Catherine Hahn has the ability to kind of influence people's minds. So maybe she just said, hey, move the fuck out. This is my house. Maybe her husband, Ralph, is the motherfucker who owned the house. You know what I mean? We don't know. I've seen people suggest that the bunny is Mephisto. I personally, this is just based on my preference. I would not be happy if that was the case, because I think that'd be corny. If you found out that it was the bunny, on some real, like, Usual Suspects, minus, the raping of men by Bryan Singer and Kevin Spacey. I'm sorry. If you told me that on some real Kaiser Soze shit, it was the bunny the whole fucking time, I'm going to feel I'm like, that's kind of corny. You're telling me that the big bad, imagine if the entire time in Marvel, is there any pets in Marvel? I'm trying to think. Were there any pets in Marvel? I can't really remember. Through the MCU, I'm not gonna remember. If you told me that the entire time Thanos was, was really just, a tree or some shit like that, and someone unlocked the tree and boom, Thanos popped out, that'd be disappointing. If you told me that, if you find out Mephisto is a fucking rabbit the whole time, that's gonna be kind of disappointing. That's gonna be disappointing. You know what I mean? This is gonna be disappointing. I just think that the rabbit is some sort of familiar. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to say that the rabbit is some sort of familiar for her. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say that's Mephisto. I just think it'd be too corny if it was. Like, personally, I would be bothered by it. Maybe it is. I mean, there are great theories for it. The reason why I don't want to believe it is because I think it's corny, not because I think it's possibly right. It could possibly be right. I just think it'd be whack. It's the bunny. Oh, it's the devil, actually. What? The bunny was the devil the whole time? That's weird. And again, even back to the point I was making about witches and that concept throughout history, half of the symbology that we've been relying on to say is satanic symbology is also kind of, like misinterpretations of things throughout history. You know what I mean? Again, very pagan, worshiping an ox. Well, it's because they provide food, like most religions worshiped the things that gave them life. So you would have like more Caribbean tribes worshiping water as a god because they're surrounded by water and they know how powerful water can be. So they view water as this, or those same around the equator view the sun as the life giver, which we know it is, gives us vitamin D and gives us energy and all this other stuff, so they just, or here, through the Midwest, you had a lot of indigenous tribes that worshiped the buffalo as something that was godlike because it was a provider of food for them, of shelter, of clothing during the winter, warm fur and all that. So just saying. So is it satanic? I don't know. We'll see. I don't think that's going to be the direction they go. I think Catherine Hahn, when she said all these spells, blah, 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 I think she means all the spells that Wanda had to cast in order to reshape this entire town, right? Because it's not just, when you think about it, how many I don't know the spells in Marvel Universe, right? But I would think that these are all different. Altering reality would require a bunch of different things, because you need to change the people and how they act. You need to alter how the people act completely. They've completely changed all the people. She set up an entire border around the town that's like a protection border almost, that people can't easily get in or out of. And she changed the entire look of the town. You know what I mean? So I would think that's a bunch of different spells. Catherine Hahn probably sensed that and said, yo, what the fuck? There's a disturbance in the force type shit, and popped in. You know, I say, yo, what's going on here? You know, maybe she does have her own thing, you know, her own separate thing, because she says that bringing Vision back to life was a non-starter since he was in another continent, you know. So I don't know. Does she want to bring someone back to life? Well, in the comics, they want her I forget what these people's names are. It was a group of witches or something like that, or witch hunters, that wanted her to bring her son back to life, something like that. I can't remember the complete story. That wanted her to bring her son back to life, Nicholas Scratch. You know what I mean? Maybe she wants to bring her son back to life. You know what I mean? And she thinks maybe Wanda could help. And shout out to Rockstar, new Rockstars, who pointed that out. When the dog's dead, she asked Wanda, that's something you can do? Like, you can bring something back to life? And maybe she does want that, but I think that she's asking Wanda, how are you doing this, to see if she can bring something back to life, but then realizing, oh, this is chaos magic. This is a problem. You don't know how dangerous you actually are. You know what I mean? I like, you're skipping over the last line. You don't know how dangerous you are. You know what I mean? Skipping over that line. Well, why would she say dangerous? If she wanted Wanda's help, why not say, you don't know how powerful you are? You don't know what power you have within you, what you can actually do. You have no clue the abilities you have. No. The word she says is, you don't know how dangerous you are. Chaos magic is dangerous because it's imbued by the god Chthon. These kids are pieces of Mephisto's soul. You don't know how dangerous you are. You know, I don't think Catherine Hahn is a bad guy. So now the next question comes is, you know, is there anything else here I wanted to answer about this episode? No, I think that's pretty much it about the episode. So now we have some questions, right? So, you know, was Paul Bettany trolling us all the time? An actor I always wanted to work with, and he's talking about himself, essentially, by bringing a second Vision. I don't think that's true, though. I don't think that's true. Maybe he is trolling us, though. I don't know. I don't think that's, you know, that's some real high, like, that's a pretty complicated, like that's a pretty not complicated, but that's like a really high intelligence troll to go with there. You know, the actor, this Riddle, you know, what is he, the Riddler all of a sudden? You know, this Jim Carrey out here with the, you know, acting like a fool. Tommy Lee Jones hated him, you know, it's a true story. Hated Jim Carrey after that. I hated him too. It's not his fault though. But anyway. Was he the Riddler all of a sudden? He's out here giving riddles? You know, the actor, who is the actor I've always wanted to work with since I was a child. It was myself. I don't know about that. Catherine, you know, Elizabeth Olsen said it was Luke Skywalker level. Shout out to my homie Alex. We had a good conversation about this yesterday. And you know what? He's 100% right. He's been saying in the beginning, there is no Luke Skywalker level actor or character in Marvel that could come back, and he's right. You know what? He's right. I'm now on his train. There is nothing even close. There is a list of closeness, so we'll get to that. But you have to understand that, because you have to keep it in context that when you're talking about Luke Skywalker level, you have to be talking about Luke Skywalker level for Star Wars fans. And Luke Skywalker popping in The Mandalorian was 40 years in the making, was this giant universe building where you meet all these badass people. You meet Darth Maul, and you see Obi-Wan at his prime, and you see, you know, Darth Vader at his prime, and you see Clone Wars and Rebels and all this, and all we ever heard was how Luke was this thugged out ass character, and then boom, he pops in, does some thugged out shit, and you get that payoff of 40 years in the making of never being able to see it. There's nothing like that exists in the Marvel. I think the closest thing that can happen is that we get the confirmation that Evan Peters is Quicksilver from Sony, from the X-Men movie franchise, and I think we will get that. Now, how we get that, I don't know. I think if it was me, right, if it was me, this is in my mind how I imagine something dope that could be, and that would be as close as you can get to Luke Skywalker, would be that Evan Peters has been being influenced this whole time. You know, kind of during the fight with Wanda and Agatha, he kind of shakes loose of this mental shit, and he's like, "Oh, where the fuck am I?" Somehow mentally is able to reach out to Professor X. Now, my guess here is that this town, what we have, what Westview is the Nexus, is going to be my guess, right? Westview is the Nexus. Wanda has created a point in the universe where all realities are able to converge. Through this point, he is able to somehow reach out to Professor X through some telepathic, if you're in the X-Men, all the X-Men can reach out to Professor X all the time, right? And if he's gone missing in that universe, let's say, would Professor X be like, where the fuck is he? He's up in Cerebro. He reaches out, and all of a sudden, through his mind, you travel, and you see Professor X. It's like you zoom up on the back of Professor X sitting in his chair through Cerebro, and he's like, everyone, X-Men, mount up. We got to go to Westview. And you see some of the X-Men starting, kind of just walk up behind him, and they're about. That'd be the only thing I think that would be somewhat similar. Be the closest you could get. I do think Evan Peters is Quicksilver again. How many times do you get? What is the benefit of throwing all of these non-starters? So, for example, in Spider-Man: Far From Home, you have Jake Gyllenhaal say, "I'm from a different reality," and then go back on that. Well, what if? And this is going to be my only theory here, right? So, this is the Nexus. That's one theory. The second theory is that we don't actually know how intact this universe is. Let's go back real quick to Endgame, where when they go to what's her face, what's her name? Damn it, I always fucking forget her name. The elder, what's her face in Doctor Strange, played with Black. I can't remember the actress's name right now. Oh my goodness gracious! And her name is. It doesn't matter. When Bruce Banner talks to her to get the time stone, she says, if you take the time stone from this reality, it's going to create a split in my reality, and it's going to fuck everything. It's going to fuck the continuity up, right? Okay. Then after that, we get Loki disappearing with the space stone from that reality. So that's fuck up number one. They go back in time and get another space stone, and then Cap is supposed to return all those stones, except Cap decides to stay back in the past. So that's fuck up number two, right? We have no idea how different this reality actually is. We haven't been able to see it. You know what I mean? We haven't really been able to see it. What if Mysterio wasn't lying? What if he is from a different reality, but he's just an asshole? You know what I mean? And he gets here and he still had the same experiences from his previous reality with Tony Stark, and recognizes that Tony Stark is still the same person here, and he's able to kind of take advantage of that himself, right? Possible. It's possible. We don't know how different this reality might be. It's possible that this reality has gotten so fucked up that these mutants have been living in plain sight, and we had no idea. And boom, here we are. You know what I mean? And boom, now here we are. So I don't know. Those are going to be my two guesses. I'm guessing we get like a Civil War type fight in the next show. No, maybe not Civil War type fight. But we're going to see the Visions fight each other. Are they going to have multiple, cameos? I don't know. Obviously, we still haven't met Monica's aerospace engineer. We haven't seen Monica now, right? We didn't see Monica last episode. We don't know what's going on there. Snooper's going to snoop. Quicksilver. Is Quicksilver now good? Is he bad? We don't know. We don't know anything. You know what I mean? I'm not going to roll with all the complicated theories that this person is actually this person. And no, let's just say that they are exactly who we think they are, because that's all that this show has confirmed, is that these people who is Vision? Vision is just Vision. You know what I mean? It's just Vision. And that's his body over there. And this is another manifestation of Vision over here. You know what I mean? It's just Vision. That's all it is. You know what I mean? Kind of playing a part of Wanda's consciousness. You know what I mean? That's it. Who is Agatha? It's just Agatha. That's it. That's all she is. That's all she is. I think we just take it at face value. That's it. That's all I got. I think that's it. We'll see. The show is coming to an end. I think the show has been good. I think it's been solid. I don't know if this episode was the best episode personally. But I thought it was a really good episode. You know what I mean? I thought that it was heavy, going down through Wanda's life, kind of. You're like seeing, what real traumatic, fucked up things happening to her. Oh, obviously the commercials. We still don't know who the two characters in the commercials are yet, so I think we may get some of that in the new, in the next episode of who those two characters actually are. I don't think those characters are Nightmare or Mephisto. I don't think they're anybody important per se, but we'll see. A lot of people were theorizing that those were Wanda's parents, but I couldn't see that. That guy is too jokey. I've seen that guy. I think I've seen that guy before. I'm pretty sure. He's just too jokey. To be such a tragic figure, I couldn't even imagine that. we'll see. Also, somebody pointed out too how the memory of Halloween from Wanda's childhood was a different Wanda and Pietro than the actual Wanda and Pietro when Wanda's going down memory lane, which is an important distinction because, you know, whose memory was that? Maybe that's why Wanda says, I remember that differently, you know, because Quicksilver's actually remembering his childhood, you know what I mean, mixed with her setting, with the setting in Wachovia, you know, and it's this like conflating of two memories, which is interesting. You know, I think that's interesting because I think that kind of paints an interesting path to Nightmare where you can remember things so differently in a dream. You can have a dream that's like, you know, like what the fuck is happening? Why is it so conflated? You know what I mean? You can have actual events happen in your dream with different people. You're like, what? So I don't know. Just a thought. I don't know what we're going to see here. You know, would Nightmare pop up? Who's going to pop up? You know, that's the question. Who's going to pop up? Who's the aerospace engineer? Is White Vision going to beat the shit out of somebody? I think White Vision leaves this fight, I don't know, unscathed, but pretty much I think at one point Hayward and White Vision get the fuck out of it. We got to get the fuck out of here. And maybe this leads to a type of Thunderbolts. If you don't know what the Thunderbolts is, the Thunderbolts are headed by General Ross, who is the guy that's constantly chasing the Hawk, who eventually turns himself into the Red Hawk to defeat the Hawk. And it's important because Hayward isn't a bad guy per se. Hayward is that bureaucratic asshole in every movie, but ultimately his biggest concern is national security. So he's trying to find weapons to do that, right? And White Vision would be that. Would General Ross get somehow involved? We know that in the She-Hulk show, they're going to reach back and bring out Abomination from the first Hulk movie that had that, not the first, I guess the second Hulk movie technically, not the one with Eric Bana, but the one with this dude from American History X. I just can't remember names. They're going to bring in the actor in that is the same actor who's in every fucking Quentin Tarantino movie, who I also can't remember. You know, he's in every Quentin Tarantino movie. It's not important. They're going to bring him back to play Abomination. You know what I mean? So, you know, could there be something where, you know, and that guy was like a military guy. So could there be something here where they try to make kind of like their own version of the Thunderbolts and White Vision at one point heads up, I think he heads up Avengers West before he becomes Vision again later on. So could they do something with that? I could see something like that happening. So we'll see. After that, we get a week off, which I don't think we're going to have a week off. I think we're actually going to get maybe a trailer next week or something that we're not expecting. And then we're going to jump right into Falcon and Winter Soldier. And, you know, we'll talk about that then. I don't think Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to cross over at all with WandaVision, but I do think that they are building two pillars that will eventually converge into the bigger storyline down the line. You know what I mean? We'll see what happens. You know, I think last time I'm going to roll with Catherine Hahn is not a bad guy. I'm going to roll with those kids, they belong to Mephisto. We're going to roll with that. We're going to get the X-Men. Fuck it. I'm going to die on that fucking corner. I don't care. I'm going to die on that island. Even if I die alone, you know what I mean? Even if I die alone, that's fine. That's fine. Because if you believe in something strong enough that you feel is worth your death alone, then you roll with it. You know, and that's the truth. And let's see what happens. So that's it. Everyone, wash your hands. You know the drill. Cover your face. Your face is stupid and ugly anyway. No one wants to see it. Next time you see me, will be tomorrow, probably for the Sixers game. After that, I'm cutting my beard off. You know, I'm going to say peace to this luscious mane. I've had enough. I mean, there's birds living in here, all types of shit. Singer Scratchy is somewhere hopping around in this bitch. It's too much. It's too much. It's getting warm. It's too much. Black Lives Matter. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. There's a great, if you want to watch, John Oliver last week tonight did a great piece on police raids, which, you know, ties directly to Breonna Taylor, of course. And if you want to really get informed, really watch that. You know, give you some real great context on how shitty everything is. And, you know, that's only if you want to depress yourself in the beginning of March. That's it, everyone. Again, wash your hands. Black Lives Matter. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. Take care.
Sometimes I gotta, and sometimes I gotta go. And sometimes I gotta, and sometimes